Hello friends, this is Michael Liebe. I'm here to talk with you about Kickstarter. Super happy to be invited and sorry that I can only hand in a pre-recording. We're currently running an event in Berlin at the same time, but I will be live here with you for the Q&A. This also explains why it's so super dark here at the moment and the lighting is artificial, but well, it's COVID 2020, we're used to new things and exceptions happening. So first I want to talk a bit about where I come from. As mentioned, I'm from Kickstarter. I function as Outreach Games Europe, but I also run my own company in Berlin. It's called Booster Space, and we're responsible for events such as the Games Week Berlin you might have heard of. I have a background as academic and always super interested in the arts and especially media arts and like non-persistent arts, so happenings and stuff you would say. So I co-founded Amaze together with Torsten back in the days. I co-founded and initiated the Digital Games Research Center at the University of Potsdam, where I also did my MA in Media Studies. And I worked as a research assistant on a PhD actually, but my funding got cancelled by the public government. And that's how I harshly learned, okay, money is not a given. Also, public funding is not a given, and public money sources need to be gathered and worked on. And that gave me like the inspiration to specialize also in fundraising. Back in the days, we looked like this. Then I had an intermediate looking like this, working for Medienboard Berlin-Brandenburg, the public funding institution. And now we basically run events and function as consultants in project financing especially, but also self-marketing, how to present yourself, how to create your identity. We do this mostly in the VR, virtual reality, and the games industry. We love to bring people together and happy faces on stage. We love to find our niches also in the event space. So we do events also for the families who usually cannot go to events together, and we love to feature inspiring personalities. We wanted to run Games Week Berlin in April. It got cancelled or postponed to October, and now we don't really know. But I wanted to use Comic Sans, sorry for this. You have to bear with the ugliest slide ever. But we will run something online between September and November 2020 called Games Week Berlin Pro Experience. But this is not the topic here. We want to talk about Kickstarter people and working with their games and their community. Back in the days, this was my boss. Now we all ran online, and I'm working together with Anja and Jonathan, who you see to the left and to the right of the screen. This is the games team, and as everybody, we're doing Hangout, Zoom and stuff to coordinate ourselves. What does outreach mean in games, in Kickstarter? So I focus on games, obviously. Games means tabletop, means live role-playing games, means augmented reality games, means also gaming hardware if applicable. But first and foremost, for myself, especially video games. And we guide you through the process of creating your campaign. I give you feedback. I even consult you if it makes sense to run it at all, or better say, hey, it's too early on this is game and your team doesn't fit to Kickstarter. It's also a service we provide, or I provide. And then do talks like this, especially at events. What are we up to for now? So there's some basics on crowdfunding, but look forward to my tables and bullet points. So if you see crowdfunding, it is massive, right? There's not only Kickstarter and INDIGO, there's like thousands of crowdfunding platforms out there. This is a Berlin site actually, collecting the different platforms. And this, if you scroll down here, it goes for miles sort of with different platforms. As an academic, I love my little tables, and I love to categorize things to better understand where I'm at also. So Kickstarter is in the project-based crowdfunding platforms. It's the biggest category, there's most platforms are in it. The most important thing is it's always reward-based, which means you as a creator always need to give something back to the backers. It's not a donation. Even a newsletter subscription is a reward in our case. So have that in mind. The most important differentiator is to financing, to equity-based crowdfunding. That's where you do micro investments and you get shares and you do it for the money. In the project-based crowdfunding, you do it for the love of the project, for your interest in the field, for your excitement about the team and the project. Kickstarter is a global happening. Almost everybody can create games or campaigns. We're welcoming Poland, Greece and Slovenia to the family of countries where you can launch from, but more to that in the future. As you know, the games industry is massive. Steam, the most important distribution platform for PC games especially, is gigantic. There's more than 30,000 games available at this moment, and how do you stand out? At the same time, Kickstarter is also very, very big. There's more than $1 billion successfully pledged to game projects by more than 3.3 million people. So it's a massive community you can tap into in order to stand out here. Some crazy numbers. I want to focus here on the success rate. Actually, it's higher than 50%. And most projects we see fail because they just didn't trigger their friends, fools and family. I'll come to that aspect in a bit. So the 0-0 projects, 0 backers, 0 euros, super small projects that just put their project on the platform and thought something would happen. But as soon as you start working with your project and your community, actually your success rate grows exponentially, and it would be a lot higher if you wouldn't have these complete failures. But still, 50% is very high. If you would imagine talking to publishers and you have a 50% success rate, after your second meeting you will already have a deal. But why should you do it? It's a lot harder than doing these meetings, you might say. My game is a lot more expensive than what I can get on Kickstarter, you might say. Also, the funding goals globally on Kickstarter are falling, you might say. Correct so. But there is added value. There's more than just the money. It's working with your community, and first and foremost, the most important benefit you will get from a failed or successful Kickstarter is the proof of concept. So imagine you want to spend two more of your life years. You want to invest more of your private money, more of your time, more of your expertise and efforts into something you think that is super cool. But do you know if there's a demand out there? Do you know if people will be as emotionally involved as you are? You can try it out. You can run your Kickstarter and get the proof of concept, not only for the project idea, but also for the team performance. So imagine you go through this amazing experience actually of running a Kickstarter campaign together, and you successfully manage to go through the ups and downs of it. So you know you as a team can achieve many things. You might have seen this in the startup world, where people are talking about the Gartner hype cycle. This is the name of the table. It basically also triggers how studios can work with their community, but also how we as a platform evolved over the years. As I like to talk more about from an emotional angle, it's very similar what Kickstarter as a platform experience to what you might experience in your relationship. When you first see your loved one, it's love at first sight, it's amazing, you go to the bed every second day and it's just up there, right? Seventh sky. But then you notice, oh, my partner is just a human being. He or she also snores, also farts, also has a bad hair day. So you go down and down and down and down, and then you need to start fighting. Do I really want to be in this relationship? And if you say yes, and if you fight for it, if you work with your partner on the relationship, you hopefully will love long and prosper. It's very similar to what we see with working with the community. As King Art Games demonstrates pretty well, they have their profile, they are out there, they run successful Kickstarter campaigns for many years. And the last and most famous one was Iron Harvest, where they raised more than 1.2 million euros actually on Kickstarter. But they started small and they grew together with their community, with their team, and with their own ambitions. That said, it's still a niche thing. You need to be aware of it. But that's also the cool thing. You know your target group. You can work with your target group and with your community on your game and make things like this happen. Also in the Netherlands, actually. You see these 3 nice games, which were actually, they're quite fresh, actually. So if some of you are here, congratulations, very good job. Thanks also from my side personally for going on to Kickstarter. This is one of the most recent projects also from the Netherlands. But you also see games like this, Shovel Knight, Darkest Dungeon, Narita Boy, Blasphemous, Godhood, Roguebook, or Everspace 1 and 2. But also a game called Niche by Strawphone Studios. And Filomena, the community manager and marketing executive at the studio and founder, she wrote the articles on the Gamma Sutra blog and put it to the point. It's about evolving together with the community, with your friends, fools, and family. And it's creating a relationship with your people. How do you manage? The most important thing is to not overpromise. It will hurt you not only for the niche of your Kickstarter community, but also in the longer run. If you say, hey, I can do this and that and blah, 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 and then at the end you don't deliver, people will see, will notice, and it will just hurt you. Rather have a small, achievable goal, go with that, especially in your first project, deliver what you promised and the quality you promised, and then everybody will be happy, including yourself. And this will help you in the future. And be grateful for what you get. So again, why does Kickstarter love games? And how can you be part of this game? So again, the academic with his table. What are we talking about? First and foremost, Kickstarter is not only about the money, as I showed in the proof of concept slide. It has more added value, and it will never 100% fund your project. You need to find solutions to combine funding, and in Europe actually we have the amazing thing that we have public funding bodies which you can combine with the crowdfunding especially. So think about the 50% you need to deliver on your private accounts for getting the public funding. That's at least how it works in Germany, and I guess it's similar in the Netherlands and in other European countries. So you can actually bring in this example, 30% of the 100% you need to produce the game through crowdfunding and trigger that in order to get the public funding paid out. I just want to put this slide in because I think it's a really important European selling point, and we can go deeper in the Q&A on this as well. So the Netherlands, nice flag actually with the white line, makes it easy to design. 28,000 backers in lifetime since Kickstarter funded projects which raised in total more than $1 million. But what's happening here? Your neighbors, 38,000 backers, invested $1.4 million into Belgium. So how can you achieve that goals and overtake what the Belgians achieved? It's know where you're at again. Most of you might work, I don't know, on work for hire projects, have publisher deals in mind, go to the bank, etc. pp. And super important is all of these target groups have different messages, different things they're looking after and need to be addressed in their individual fields. So work for hire, you need to have references. I did this project, so I can also do that. You need to know who's the decision maker within the company giving you the contract. For public funding, super important is your relevance as a team, as a studio, with your profile for the regional marketing efforts. And they want to support startups and young companies to grow and pay taxes in the future. For crowdfunding, it's a bit different. You need to have a proof that you can deliver. You need to have a playable demo which you can show to the people who want to see if you actually know what you're doing, if your tech works, if your game works, and how it feels. You need to have a profile as a studio, and you need to have some other administrative stuff. And you need to be able to communicate this and want to communicate this also to your audiences. Then again, it's different for investment, for the banks, and for publishers. Also important is to have in mind that the later you start to run the crowdfunding, the Kickstarter, in the lifetime of your project development phase, the easier it actually gets to raise the funds. I'll come to that in the Q&A if you have more questions as well. Also know there's a difference between friends, fools and families, followers, fans and participants. Why do I focus so much on friends, fools and families? If you can't even convince your mother to support you on your game project, why should I, as an unknown people to you, support your team? So it is important to have your closest people being convinced of your project, of your team, of your goals, and also show not only your love but also the support for your project. But then in the end, the most valuable thing you can generate is fans of you as a studio, followers of your engagements and working with you on the future project. Also you might run also after the first and second projects. So these, your peer group, are super important. Never forget about them. You want to transform them into this. But you first need to convince your mother that it makes sense what you're doing. Thomas Bidot put it in a good nutshell. It's not about the likes, it's about the love if you work on a Kickstarter. But that said, being sexy or famous is simply not enough. As we have seen also in projects, for example by John Romero called Black Room. Or if you have this amazing IP called Apocalypse Now, it's no guarantee for success. So let's go a bit deeper into the hands-on stuff. When do you launch, you might wonder. Go when your community is ready means, of course, you have the bigger picture of your project lifetime. So let's say you want to launch in September. But do you need to launch in August 30 or September 30? That should depend on when your community is ready. Do you have people asking, hey, are you going to run a Kickstarter? That's the perfect time to start. You should start early to prepare. Build your community, build your websites, build your assets, pre-write your newsletters, pre-write your updates on the Kickstarter platform. Then you have the 1 month, 30 days, más o menos, of the campaign, and then you have the fulfillment phase. This can be X, of course. As I mentioned earlier on, the shorter the X is, the better, but it can take up to 2 years, and that's totally fine. In video games, the community knows how it works. Yes, go when your community is ready, but try to avoid Christmas, try to avoid Thanksgiving, and try to avoid, or do avoid weekends. Everything else doesn't really matter. All other months, except for December and January, are pretty much the same. Why is your friends, fools and family so important? Because you need backers from the start. What I said before in the statistics of the success rate, the 0-0 projects, they don't happen if at the very beginning of your campaign you have a drive, you have people on the campaign backing it, commenting on it, generating excitement, sharing it. You want your friends, fools and families to attract the lemmings. How do you get there? One of the most important tools is the newsletter. I'm not talking about newsletter, I'm talking about mailing list. Double opt-in, GDPR conform email subscription is a lot more powerful than just liking and following on Twitter or Facebook. But still, the social media is the thing. It's a lot more powerful also than press and media reports. So what I said before with the 0-0, you see it here in the numbers. If you only have 10 backers, the success rate is almost at 60%. If you have 25 backers, the success rate is already at almost 66%. So that's crazy, just think about it. If you just manage to activate 25 people, be it your classmates, be it the people here in the room now, in this audience now, to support your campaign, you're already on the track to actually reach your 100%. We also see this not only in friends, fools and family, which means personal contacts, but also in regions. In Europe, we see money coming from the neighboring countries and from your own country especially. So as you see here, like Switzerland, 16% of the backings come from Switzerland. 35% of the German projects are funded by other Germans. 24% of the Spanish projects are funded by Spanish people. Still, the USA is the biggest market, and you see that always on every Kickstarter campaign, no matter where it's launched from. You need to target the Americans. And your mom. And your friends, fools and family. And you want to create lemmings. And you want to have this happening. Thanks a lot. So please talk about what you're doing. Please tweet the shit away, and please reach out to me if you have questions or want to give feedback or want to talk over your project. I have gathered some resources which you can also find here. Thanks a lot, Indigo, and looking forward to answer your questions. Ciao, ciao.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, hello.
Because thank you for joining us. I think you are right now live from a event floor. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Have a look here. So we just on the minute or second actually finished the live stream of the Games Week Berlin Dev Booster, where we showcased 8 top games from this location here in Berlin called Level. So it couldn't
amazing.
have been better timing.
Thanks for taking the time.
Sure.
Great. I was wondering about the 10 to 25 people that you just mentioned at the end of the talk, where you say if you get at least 10 people on board, your chances go up to I think it was 65%. That sounds unbelievable almost.
Yes, the easy reason is because it's like the absolute majority of the failed campaigns, like who sort of are the reason why we are only at. Sorry, I just moved to a different location. The reason why the statistics are at only 50% is because most of the failing campaigns don't even have any backers.
Yeah.
So that's why as soon as you got a couple of backers, it means that you actually know what you're doing, that you actually have a community. And then the number 10, yes, is super low, but that's at the same time a very nice proof of saying, hey, just as long as you have people following you, chances are high that you can manage.
Right. And maybe a bit of a specialized question for the Dutch folks. You ended or at the end of the talk, you had a slide about how a lot of the money was, or at least a chunk of the money percentage was generated locally. So Spanish projects had more of a Spanish deal size, so to speak. The Netherlands are, of course, not the biggest country. Does that make it more like harder for Dutch Kickstarters to succeed? Because we've had some big successes here.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you have one additional disadvantage, not only the size, but also that most of your folks don't use credit cards, or hardly anybody. And we need to have credit cards for Kickstarter backings as well as to create a campaign.
Right.
So there's two disadvantages for you, sort of. But on the other hand, we see that at many of the smaller countries, that they simply know, the creators usually simply know you need to think global. So most of your people will have a good, strong outreach into international target markets. That said, the 10, right? These 10 people you need to have to increase your success rate. They should please come from your friends, foods, and families, because the psychology is also, if you can't even convince your mother, I think I also said it in the video, then why should some random stranger trust you?
Right. No, right.
So,
Michael?
It is still relevant, but yes, you need to go a bit more global, mostly because of the credit card.
I think we are having some little technical difficulties, but I'm going to try and ask you one more question just to check.
Yes.
Someone, this is a question from the chat, actually.
Hello?
I don't know if this is true or if this is a difficult point to talk about, but is free-to-play still a no-no on Kickstarter? I don't know exactly what that means, but is there a policy towards free-to-play games?
No. It's not forbidden. So you can create a free-to-play game, but there's two categories that just don't work on Kickstarter. It's mobile games and it's kids games. And free-to-play also doesn't work on PC. Because free-to-play, like, what do you want to give as a reward? You know, usually you would say, hey, give me $10 and you get a copy and a Steam key.
Right.
But in free-to-play, what do you back for? And so that the concept of free-to-play just doesn't fit to crowdfunding. But it's not forbidden. We had some campaigns actually being successful.
Okay, I totally get it. Thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule and doing this live on the floor. Fantastic. Thank you so much.